بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. In the name of Allah, the compassionate, the most merciful. All praise is due to Allah, and may His peace and blessings be upon our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Wherever you are, you may be. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. May the peace and the blessings of Allah be upon you and your loved ones, Ya Rabbal Alameen. And welcome to Let Us Talk on Thursdays, a program that we promise to be the intersection of faith and reason, where we keep it real, we keep it relevant, and most important, we keep it decent and we keep it Islamic to the very best of our ability. I welcome you to the very first session of this weekly series, inshallah, that we hope that you would enjoy. This is going to be a family-friendly setting, so always please feel free to watch this along with your family members. No topic is off the table. We discuss everything, and we discuss it for the sake of empowerment, enlightenment, to be better educated and to broaden our horizon. And as we said, we promise to always keep it decent and keep it theologically sound, and we also promise to keep it very reasonably sound as well. It gives me a great pleasure to have as my first guest Dr. Mohammed Malley, who is the principal of PVS, Pleasant View School here in Memphis. And as you know, with this whole COVID thing, people being quarantined, and most of our schools being online, I know that this is going to present as a challenge to the teachers, to the schools, to the administrators, to the students, as well as to the parents. Well, how do we navigate our way? How do we meander through these challenges to make this a positive learning experience for our children? And who better to have as our very first guest to discuss this really, really important topic but Dr. Malley. Dr. Malley, welcome to Let's Talk on Thursdays.
Jazakallah khair. Well, thank you very much for having me.
And my guess is that you're still at the office.
Inshallah, alhamdulillah.
It is 9 p.m. Did you get a chance to go home?
I did go home and came back.
Well, we appreciate you and appreciate what you're doing. And I believe this would got to be like your 20th Zoom meeting of the day.
Inshallah.
All right, beautiful. All right, so I believe that we opened the school this last Monday on the 10th of August. If you can, please just help us understand what is the plan and what is your assessment of how it's been going in almost the first week of school now?
Yeah, well, during the summer, we made multiple plans, actually. We had the plan to be fully back in school. And we set up the whole school to have, to be in compliance with CDC guidelines, to have social distancing. We got the different kind of technology so we could do hybrid classes if we had to, where some students were home and some students were here. But then as the situation worsened in Memphis with the pandemic, we then switched to a fully remote or virtual plan, which we had also been planning before. So currently we're teaching fully virtual. The plan is to continue doing this until the pandemic situation allows us to come back to school. But the philosophy that we're following is that we want to teach virtually as if we're a virtual school. We don't do it as a stopgap measure, as something that's just kind of help us get to, for a few days or weeks, however long it's going to be. We train the teachers throughout the summer on the methods and the pedagogies for teaching remotely. And actually, I can say that one of the things that really inspires me is seeing the amount of enthusiasm our teachers have. It's a challenge. It's a totally different way of teaching. And our teachers really embraced this challenge. And seeing their enthusiasm for really tackling this challenge, it inspired me to know that the teachers really are going to do a good job. So the way we've organized it's different. It's a different method of teaching when you're teaching remotely than when you're teaching in person. So we're having kind of like what you would call a block schedule. The classes aren't meeting every day like they normally would in the school here, but most of the classes, especially for the older students, they meet every other day. So 2 or 3 times a week. And the lessons are then given in a way that the students will have some content to do on their own, and the Zoom sessions that we have are more discussion-based types of sessions.
Nice. And now that it's been almost a week of schooling, what would you say is your assessment as far as this week is concerned?
Alhamdulillah, I think it went, the first week went, I think, phenomenally well. We moved to the remote teaching last March when the pandemic got bad at that time. And alhamdulillah, our school was able to make the transition in just 2 days. We didn't take a lot of time. We really wanted to make sure we continued the educational process. And I think we had a lot of successes at the end of last year, but we also learned a lot of lessons. And one of the things that I think we learned and that we have implemented this year is having a much more structured schedule with much more face time with teachers. So last year, it was mostly what's called like asynchronous teaching, where a lot of the teaching was done where the teachers would give work for the students, or they would make videos and the students would watch those videos. But it was less, personal interaction with the teachers and the students. But this year, we found that having that interaction is extremely important. So our teachers are having much more interaction with the students this year. Again, the schedule started out, and it's very smooth. We have, a very, very good IT support team here. They've helped us set up our infrastructure, so it's very easy for parents to get to the classes they're going to go to. That was another big problem we had last year, is that every teacher would be sending links to the students, finding those links and keeping track of them. It became cumbersome. But this year, it's very easy. The teachers and the students go to what they call a Clever page. Once they're in there, they get all their classes. They just click on their classes, and the Zoom links are there, and they get into their classes. So it's a much easier system and a much more structured system than we had at the end of last year.
Nice. Oh, that's really nice to hear. And Dr. Malley, I hate to put you on the spot, but I must ask this question. I know that a good number of Islamic schools, they face the challenge of, most parents say that I bring my kids to the Islamic schools for the Islamic education as well as for the environment. Now that the environment is no longer an issue, since most, if not all of the schools are virtual at this point, why should I continue to bring my kids to a paid virtual education when I know that I can get this virtual education for free somewhere else? And now the question is, did the schools suffer because of this? Meaning that did people drop out as a result? And what do you tell people to continue to bring their kids to the private school, despite the fact that it's virtual, like all other schools at this point?
First of all, the school continues to be an Islamic school. So yes, we have lost the ability of the students to be here on campus, but the culture of the school remains, even in a virtual classroom. And again, like I said, we're having a lot of student-teacher interaction with classes. So the classes are taking place on Zoom with the students. So Islam continues to infuse everything that we do in the school. It continues to impact the way we teach. It continues to impact the things we teach. So our students are still learning the Islamic studies. Actually, one of the things that we found last year, and that we've really been able to focus on even more now, is that our students improved in the Quran recitation skills much more remotely than they did in person. And we found that there are advantages. And some of the training that we did was, what can we do to take advantage of teaching remotely? And one of the things is that you can have much more individualized instruction. When you have a class of 15, 20 students in a classroom, it's sometimes very difficult to help each individual student with their needs. I mean, teachers do it, they're trained to do it, but it's difficult. Whereas in the remote world, it's easier to schedule one-on-one meetings with teachers. And in those very small one-on-one, or sometimes 2 to 3 students with a teacher, in those small groups, we're able to help them gain skills better than we can even in person. So we're capitalizing on those advantages. So alhamdulillah, the students, the Quran program is very intense this year, more intense than it was in the past. Our Islamic studies teachers are really embracing discussing with the students topics that are relevant to the time we're living in. And it's a difficult time. It's a challenging time for the students, for their identity, and being part of an Islamic school in which the students are really involved and active in expressing their identity and being proud of that identity helps, maintain their commitment to Islam even in the virtual world. So I personally think that, in the virtual world, the challenges can be sometimes even more than in the regular time, because the students are, they're at home alone for long periods of time. They can get depressed. They sometimes, start going on the websites and just, finding things that are maybe not appropriate. So having an anchor in Islam is extremely important. And I think that our school provides that. We continue giving, motivation, encouragement to our students. So I think staying in the Islamic school now is extremely important for the future of our students.
Beautiful, well said. Dr. Malley, what I'd like to do now is take you through literally a day in the school, where we get to learn about the challenges that the children face, the parents face, as well as the school faces. So I believe that the first class at PVS starts at 8 in the morning.
We have an assembly before that. So we have an assembly where we read Azkar, we read Quran, so the students can, begin the day with the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then after that, yes, the first class is 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock. Is that too early?
It's can be too early for some of the high school students. So a lot of the high school classes start at 9:30. There's research that shows that the older students, 8 o'clock might be too early for them. So based on that, we again, this is something we're able to do in the virtual world that is very hard to do in the physical world. When we have the physical school, everybody has to start at 8 o'clock. Now that we're virtual, it's easier to say, for this individual student, you can start at 9:30, because you don't have to drive to the school, be dropped off by your parents. You don't have siblings in different grades. So if we look at our high school classes, the majority of students, not all, but the majority of students start at 9:30. So that gives them an extra hour and a half in the morning that they wouldn't have in the real world, in the in-school session.
Nice. I was reading on some of the research regarding students and the whole idea of getting up early. Of course, they say that because of the summertime and people being under lockdown, we were laxed with what time students went to sleep and what time they got up in the morning. So hopefully we started 2 weeks before the beginning of school to enforce the sleep time and the wake up time, rather than wait for the first day of school to try to wake people up before that. So if your school has not started yet and you are a parent out there, it is best practice that you start, implementing these times right now. Another thing also is this idea of, I know that in some schools, they still require that people wear uniforms, because it gives people this impression that this is really serious. We are still at school, so get out of your PJs and put on a school uniform. Do not attend the class wearing your pajamas. Are these things that you've considered?
We've talked about this, and what we've told our students is that we're not going to enforce the actual uniform. However, we want to enforce the Islamic dress code. So students shouldn't come in their pajamas. They shouldn't come not wearing, proper Islamic clothing. But we felt that since the students were at home, we want to also benefit from the fact, or let the students benefit from the fact, that they can be a little bit more comfortable. We want to make this experience of remote, it's a challenge to have the remote learning. So in general, it's a big challenge. But we felt that if we can ease on some areas, it will make it more convenient for the students. So that was one area that we've decided, and we talked to the students. We said that if they can show that they can maintain the Islamic dress code, then we will not be forced to, compel them to wear the actual school uniform. And inshallah, we're hoping this will be a learning experience for the students, that they can put their own conditions, they'll know what red lines are there, and inshallah, they'll impose it on themselves in a sense, rather than having us impose it on them.
One thing about, I guess the school would be kindergartens and preschoolers, first, second, and third graders. I think that one important element of being at school is interaction with their peers, and also having a face-to-face relationship with the teacher. The whole encouragement, the whole motivation that the teacher is able to do in the classroom it's got to be extremely challenging, especially for the younger ones, as far as how do you do this to this age group? So what's happening there with that
I
age
mean,
group?
you're absolutely correct. It is by far the biggest challenge for the pre-K kindergarten students, especially those who were not in the school last year. So like most of our, pre-K kindergarten students are basically new to the school. The first graders, because they were here in kindergarten, they already knew the teachers even, they kind of know the school. It's a little bit of an easier transition. For very young children, the biggest challenge is building that, class culture with students that you've never met before.
Mm-hmm.
Alhamdulillah, we have teachers who are very experienced. They've been reaching out to the students even before the school year started. They're trying to talk one-on-one with them to get them excited about school. It's a challenge, but my expectation is that with time, after the first 2 or 3 weeks, when the students really get to know the teachers, they'll enjoy it. One of the things that our teachers do very well, especially our kindergarten teachers, they really know how to make learning fun. So they're able to make it that the kids really look forward to coming to school. And one of the things that we're implementing this year is having on Fridays, for the lower elementary grades, a lot of fun activities. So the kids go to school Monday through Thursday. They look forward to Friday, where they'll have, more fun activities that really bring the whole class together. It enables the kids to kind of interact and talk to each other. They have like show and tell type things things that the kids will look forward to all week and help us build that class culture even when they're not here in person.
Nice. I love it. This is really absolutely music to my ears, because like you said, part of what makes the school fun, especially for the younger kids, is unfortunately at this point they're missing out on these experiences. But I love the fact that the teachers are trying to make up for that in the way that you just described. What about the parents who have, let's say, 3 or more than 2 kids at the time, and they need them sitting on their notebooks, each one signed into the proper, Zoom link for the class that they have? That can be very challenging to parents as well.
That was extremely challenging for us last year because of again, we made a very quick transition, and teachers were sending links out through email and we have Parent Squares, one of our parent communication forums. But the Parent Square is kind of like Facebook, it scrolls through. So you send an email at 8 o'clock in the morning. If it's 1 in the afternoon and you're trying to look for it, you have to scroll down and find it. So that was, I think, one of the biggest challenges we had last year. Again, this summer we've been working very hard. Brother Sohaib Malley, he's our IT specialist. He's a volunteer actually, but he's really helped us tremendously in setting it up in a way where it's very easy for everyone. So the student basically, when they open their computer, especially if it's a school issued device, and we're inshallah going to be issuing school issued devices to everyone. They're on back order right now. But basically, when the student opens the device, even any other device, they have a clever badge that they just show to the computer, and the students immediately inside their individual website for that individual student. And when they get there, all of their class links are already there with the times written. So it'll be, Islamic studies 8 a.m. The reading class 9:30. So the child can see the times and the link. That all they have to do is click on it, and they're into the class.
And I think you're addressing the technical part of it, and I was thinking of the human challenge part of it, and that is 3 kids at the same time, all starting at the same time, needing to be all ready to go. That is really challenging.
Yeah, it's a challenge. What we've heard so far from the parents is that it's not insurmountable. And again, one of the challenges that we have as a school, and that we're working with our teachers to make sure they do, is to keep the classes engaging. If the students want to come to the class and they feel like the class is entertaining in a sense, even engaging, that they're benefiting, that they enjoy it, then it becomes much easier for the parents. So we're using more, online tools that, the students are doing things where they have, like competitions where it's online, and the kids, they get really excited and really into what's happening. they don't even sometimes feel like they're learning. They feel like it's a way of being entertained in a sense. It's a challenge for us to teach that way, but it's actually, one thing that I think I found with this pandemic, and this is something that's going on nationwide, is that teachers are realizing that there are better ways to teach, that, there are reform methods of teaching that we've been talking about for a long time, but they were slow to implement. And with this current crisis, we're implementing things a lot faster. And we're finding that it's more difficult to keep kids engaged remotely, but we're doing things, better to keep them engaged. And I think some of these things will last even after we come back to school, because sometimes teachers, when you're teaching in the class, you almost have a captive audience. So in one sense, we've lost that captive audience. We have to earn our students coming to the classes, and inshallah, our teachers are doing a great job in doing that.
And I must fully agree on that last part. I'm teaching there at the school, and I teach my class on Islamic psychology. And I can tell you that it is just not about content anymore. It is literally about the level of energy that you have to display as a teacher, the tone of voice, the challenge of keeping your class informative, lighthearted, literally entertaining and engaging. And I'm just finding myself after the class, I'm just ready to sit down and not do anything. So I can only feel for the teachers who are teaching multiple classes back to back. And I cannot really help but admire what the teachers are doing nowadays. And one thing that I really, it's going to be something that I'm going to repeat throughout, this time with you, is keep referring to one of my favorite books. Don't sweat the small stuff. And I say this to the parents. I say it to the parents with their kids. I say it to the parents with the teachers. I say it to the teachers with the kids. This is new to all of us. In the process, I think we're going to make mistakes. In the process, I think we're going to find out that there are some ways that are better than others. And I really, really hope that as we do so, for everybody, please, please, I beg, do not sweat the small stuff. And I can also see this being challenging to students as well. It can really get boring. We're talking about you staring at the screen, what is it, 8 to 3 every day? I know we've got the breaks and I know we've got the lunchtime, but that's a long time to be sitting down in front of a screen.
And we're giving the students, more breaks now than they would have in the school year, in the regular school. So the breaks are longer. Between classes, they have 15, 20, sometimes 30 minutes. So it's done in a way that the students will, hopefully be able to have a class and get up, have something to drink, have something to eat, come back to the next class. So we're trying to give more breaks to the students so that it doesn't get, like you said, boring.
And I think you just said that the purpose of the break is not to visit a different website than the school website.
Yeah,
the purpose of the break is to, is for people to get up, get something to eat, maybe get fresh air. And I think that just keeping the kids physically moving, I think is just going to be really, really important.
One of the things that we're doing this year, we didn't do at the end of last year, was we are holding our physical education classes. And the PE classes are done not the same way we do them here. The whole purpose of it is to kind of give, like fitness or nutritional advice to the students. So our teachers are meeting with the students. They're going through some, exercises, calisthenics, things like that. But more importantly, they're meeting with them and talking to them about making a plan for the whole week. So if they meet with them once a week, sometimes in very small groups again, they'll meet, they'll discuss with them, what their plan is for the week, how they're keeping healthy, what they're doing to exercise. They're giving them challenges, ride your bicycle this much this week, run this much. So they're giving them, personal fitness advice in a sense, to make it so that we're really looking at the whole child, not just the academic aspect, but trying to make sure they're healthy holistically.
Nice. Dr. Malley, one thing that I've been hearing from the parents is this idea of my kids are online, but I constantly have to be walking behind them to make sure that they are on the website that they need to be on, that they are paying attention. I go from one child to another, and then I come back to this child, and in the meantime, I have to be doing other stuff as well. Almost like being I don't want to say overbearing, but literally just turning into a police officer, making sure that monitoring every single thing. Is this what we're hoping to see of our kids?
And what we're hoping is that what we're living through now can help our children learn, or the students learn, some more self-regulatory skills themselves. And from my experience, probably you know better than me, from my experience, that if the parents step back, they will find their students can step up. That when the parents step back and let the children do what they're supposed to be doing in the classes, they will find that most of the students will do what they're supposed to do. But when the child knows the parents behind their back and is going to keep telling them what to do, a lot of times that will lead the students to think it's okay to do something else because nobody told them not to. So it almost becomes a crush. They need their parent to tell them to do what they're supposed to be doing. Whereas I think that if again, you know but much better than me on this, but I think if the parents in general can show their children they trust them, let them know we trust you're going to be on this, and they don't follow up. Again, this is for older students more than younger ones, but don't follow up until the end of the day, or don't follow up for 4 or 5 hours. I think that the students with time will learn those self-regulatory skills that we all want them to have. What we would also advise is that not to have more than one device. So if they're using a school issued device, they can't use that device to go on other sites. They can't use that device to go to websites that we're not allowed. We basically can control our devices 100%. And again, unfortunately, we don't have enough devices right now to give every student, but we're hoping within the next couple of weeks we'll have them.
Unfortunately, that is the device that sometimes they have next to them as you're doing. But Dr. Malley, what you're proposing is, I love what you're proposing, even though it's a bit scary. You are saying that do not monitor until the very end of the day. And if you expect the kids to do certain things and you allow them to, they will step up. But if you continuously watch them, they will actually be relaxed. That is really, really an interesting proposition that you're making. I fully 100% agree with you. Let them step up and become their own policemen and their own policewomen, rather than depending on you to come and tell them that what they're doing is wrong.
I think the child needs to know the parent trusts them. So if the parents talk to their children and let them know that we trust you, this is what you're supposed to be doing. Usually the child will then they'll have a sense of pride in themselves that their parents trust them. But when they have the feeling that their parents don't trust them, it leads them to not have that sense of pride and to try to get around what they're supposed to be doing, because they know their parents are going to be on their back telling them to do what they're supposed to do.
Beautiful. I love it, and I love the different proposals that you are making. About the teachers, what types of challenges are the teachers facing from what you've been hearing from them?
I mean, the biggest challenge is that they're changing the way they've been, teaching for years. So teachers are used to teaching a certain way. They're used to having the students there with them, and they deal with them in a certain pedagogy of teaching. And now all of a sudden they're teaching remotely, where it's in many ways a very, very different method of teaching if you want to be effective. But again, what I've seen is a level of enthusiasm that I haven't seen since I moved here. I mean, the teachers, we have great teachers here. They're all experienced. They're all good teachers. But there's two kinds of people. There's some when they face a challenge, you see them shrink away from it. You see a lot of negativity, complaining, and things like that. And then you see those who really embrace that challenge, and the kind of camaraderie we see among our teachers now, the kind of teamwork, the kind of helping each other and trying to figure things out is much better than it's been in the past. And I'm not seeing any negativity at all among the teachers. No teachers are complaining about how this is not fair, or it's too hard, or there's a level of enthusiasm and positivity and teamwork and camaraderie that I think is extremely positive in showing that they really want to step up to the challenge that they're facing. And that's, I think, having a big impact on the, big positive impact on the kind of education they're delivering to the students. So yes, it's challenging. Yes, it's new things, but they're attending workshops, they're, online, training, and there's a lot of stuff out there that's been coming out recently. Really, how do you teach remotely? And again, one of the things that I said earlier, and that we've taken as a philosophy here at PBS, is that yes, we'll come back to the school as soon as the doctors, the medical professionals tell us that we can. But until we come back, we're going to embrace the remote teaching as if we're a remote school. We don't want this to be just a stopgap measure. We're going to teach remotely until we come back, and it doesn't really matter if we fulfill certain objectives or not. We want to teach remotely with the same level of academic expectations that we would have if we were a fully remote school. As we want to look into social, emotional aspects that we don't want to just say, well, we'll deal with that when the kids get back. We want to deal with everything as if we're a fully remote school, because we feel that's what the students deserve. Even if it's only for a week or a month, they don't deserve to miss that week or that month of education, a full education, because we happen to be forced to teach remotely.
Nice. Love it. Okay, Dr. Malley, we would like to spend the rest of the time in giving tips to parents as well as to the students. So the number one tip that I would like to repeat once again is this idea of please, 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 the parents, do not sweat the small stuff. And I think what I mean by that is not everything needs to be turned into a battle or a fight. And I believe that as parents, we really have the ability and the responsibility to control the temperature at home. If we are tense, especially at the very beginning of the day, I think our tension will translate into the kids. I think it will transfer. It can be very, very contagious. If we wake up very angry, always assuming the very worst at the very beginning of the day, I think this will just have an extremely negative impact on our children. So I would say, please just wake up with this idea of today is going to be a beautiful day, and do not sweat the small stuff. Not everything needs to turn into a battle. It's literally okay to lose some of the battles if you win the overall war. And there is no war here, but I'm just using this as a metaphor. So one tip that I will give to everybody that is involved in this is please, please do not sweat the small stuff. What we are going through is unprecedented. We've never witnessed anything like this in our life. This is not how education is going to be. But everybody's trying to do their best. The school is trying to do its best. The teachers are doing their best. The parents are doing their best. The kids are doing their best. And I think that collectively, if we decide that we are not going to sweat the small stuff, I think that will have an absolutely positive impact on all the people who are around you. And by the way, don't sweat the small stuff is not just a motto that we say, but that is also, it's very prophetic. As you know, in the hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, Inna Allah yuhibbu min al-umuri ma'aliha, Dr. Ma'ali, Inna Allah yuhibbu min al-umuri ma'aliha, wa yakrahu sifsafaha. You know, Allah loves that people pay attention to worthy matters, to big matters, and that they disregard unworthy matters. So the idea of knowing what the priorities are, knowing where I need to pick my battles, knowing where I need to put my foot down, I think that is just extremely brilliant, and it is really, really needed at this point.
I agree 100%.
Okay, now your turn. A tip, either to the parents, to the kids, or to the teachers.
I think the most important thing the most important advice I would have is for the students, like I said about the teachers, to remain positive, to embrace the fact that we're in this situation instead of complaining about it. Don't be negative about the situation. And we have some students, for example, who they realize that we're in this kind of situation, and we've seen them thrive in ways that are unbelievable. We have students, alhamdulillah, finished memorizing the Quran recently, and they memorized much more since March than they had before. We have students taking a number of online courses in colleges right now, knowing that they have more time than they had previously, and they're taking advantage of that fact rather than wasting the time in things that are not meaningful. We have, like I said, we have an internal Quran program. We ask our students to embrace that program. That instead of thinking how it might be unfortunate that we're not in school, think of what advantages you can gain from the situation you're in and take those advantages in the time that we have. We might be like this for a month. We might be like this for another 2 months, 3 months. We don't know how long. But however long that period of time is, look at yourself, look at your schedule, see how you can take advantage of the situation you're in. Another possible advantage is with your family. A lot of students have not been able to spend as much time with their family now as they did previously. So think of that as how can you take advantage of that situation instead of just see the negative aspects of it. So a lot of times when we're in this kind of situation, we dwell on the negative. My advice would be to dwell on whatever positive you can find in the situation that you're in.
Beautiful. And remember that when we say dwell on the positive, it does not mean that we are blind to the negativity that is out there and to the challenges that are out there. But what we are saying is that let us use our energy, our effort, and have our focus be on what is good and what potentially can be good. Another thing that I was also reading about, that this is, I guess, tip number 3 now, is bringing a structure to the day, especially the school hours. And one thing that I've been reading about is the importance of designating a consistent place that this is where the students sit. Now remember, that place can be any place. It could be the dining table, it could be the desk, wherever it is. But the idea of designating and associating a certain place that this is where education takes place, they speak about it as being really, really important. So your bed is really not the best place to be, attending these classes. So what they're saying is that students actually do better, even with distance learning, if they know that this is the place that they go to when these classes are designated. Now, preferably, the place has the least amount of distraction. We're talking about physical distraction as well as electronic distraction, and also keeping things a little bit away from the kitchen, because teachers have been telling me that they've been hearing, spoons and cooking going on as the teaching is taking place. And I tell you why this is crucial. They also found out that if people cannot hear you well, you know what happens? We immediately check out. We literally check out. So what they're saying is, when you designate that place, you want to make sure that the place is actually prepared and the place is conducive of good learning. Now, to some, my speaker is working well, my microphone is working well. This may be working for me. To some other people, they may need that earpiece and they may need the microphone. I know that with the Chromebook, sometimes, the speakers don't really work as well. The microphone does not work as well. This is crucial because literally, as I said, they find out that if people cannot hear well, they will try for the first maybe 20, 40 seconds. If they can't, they just literally check out. So please make sure that the place where we are having our students sit is a place with the least amount of distraction. Sometimes bringing a sense of organization can be as simple as bringing a cup for people to just stick their pens and the pencils in it, so that it gives the sense that, this place is actually organized. Please do not undermine this tip. They really, and I tell you, all these tips, these are based on observation, and they're based on good practice and actually a positive outcome as a result of it. It may sound very simple, but it can easily be overlooked to the point that it can negatively impact the academic achievement of our children.
I agree 100%. And what we've actually said at PBS is that to help you do that, you can borrow one of our desks. We have, because the students aren't here, we have plenty of desks. And what we're saying is that if you want to borrow a desk until we come back to school, we will let you take. And we have some nice.
Nobody told me that. Nobody said that to me.
So we have nice sized desks where you could, you have the desk, you can put your books on it, you can keep, like you said, and this is what we're encouraging, the same thing, to keep everything in the same place. So you have your books. You mentioned the dining room table. I don't want to say don't do it, but the problem with that is you'll go there, then leave, then go there and leave. So I agree 100% with what you say. And I would say put a desk somewhere where that's that child's desk. They have their books there. They know that that's where they basically go to school.
Yep.
They have their schedule somewhere there that's clear, that stays in the same place. And I agree 100% that that's an extremely important thing that will help them succeed this year, inshallah.
Beautiful. And by the way, if you happen to be following us on YouTube or on Facebook and you have a question, please do address it on the chat. If you have a tip that has worked for you and your family that you'd like to share with us, please do share that with us, and we will make sure that we share it with the rest of the community as well. They also spoke about this idea of designating a place, preferably designating a specific place for every student in the household. Parents would be saying, look, my son just took a math class and left his math book here. And then the period after, he had Arabic and he did it over there, and he left the Arabic book over there. But then when his younger sibling was looking, we had to scramble all over the place. So I say, bringing that sense of structure also invites organization. And organization, kicks away distraction, and that is the hope in doing something like this. So please do not overlook or undermine the importance of the designation of a place for that. Dr. Malley, what are we doing as far as you said, this idea of rewarding kids who do well, for example? The teacher can give them, a pat on the back, or, have the class clap for them. And I think this element of motivating, especially younger kids, that one is missing at this point. How do we compensate for that idea?
Like one of the things I said earlier is that, being forced to teach remotely is in some ways accelerating some reform efforts that have been talked about for a long time. And one of the things, the ideas that's been around for a long time that, we implement it halfway sometimes, and we don't fully embrace it sometimes, is the importance of focusing, much more on intrinsic motivation rather than extrinsic motivation. So we really, want to get to the point where saying, a good word, and we have the chat, and even like in the Dhuhr Khatir, we have a Dhuhr Khatir every day. And during that Khatira, students, it's an interactive, the Sheikh Omar will be talking and students will be interacting. And sometimes there's some, amazing comments that students make. As a co-host, I can go in and talk to that student in a way that only that student will see. So sometimes a few words of encouragement to that student, and then, then I have a little conversation with them on the side, nobody else sees it. I think is sometimes more meaningful than giving them, a certificate or something like that. That we're basically acknowledging the fact that they did good, and they feel good because they know that it's the right thing. They know that they for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they feel good about what they did. And to get to that point, it's not easy. But I think if we can really embrace the concept of people doing good for the sake of themselves, for the sake of, they don't need the extrinsic, reward to make them want to do the right thing. And I think that we're learning better methods of doing that because we're kind of forced to in this environment.
I think what you're saying, Dr. Malley, is that people around us may encourage us, but motivation has to come from within. And I love this idea. However, please make sure that we give credit where credit is due, and that does not mean that we do not point out and appreciate the good that is coming from our children. I think what Dr. Malley is talking about is that ultimately what is best is not await the clap or the cheerleading from people, but actually doing this for your own personal satisfaction, so that you actually do feel better about yourself. Dr. Malley, okay, so what about this idea of what are the challenges for you as an administrator? What is going on with you there?
I mean, it was a special challenging last year when we had to make the very rapid transition, where it was hard to kind of, keep a grip on everything that was going on in the school. And again, with the technology now, we found that in many ways it's even easier. It's easier for an administrator in the virtual world to visit classrooms than it would necessarily be here. We just sit at our computer, we can drop in on different classes and see what's going on, see what's happening. It was challenging to make the schedule as well, but alhamdulillah, we now have tried to figure out the best way where we can schedule things. Again, it's in a different world than it was before. So there are many challenges, but I think, again, when we have that philosophy of embracing the situation that we're in, all those challenges are easy to meet.
Nice. Another tip, Dr. Malley, that people speak about is very similar to the previous ones, but just making sure that the idea of moving away from rigidity and accommodating for flexibility. The chances are, I was just told the other day by one of the parents, she said that I had 4 kids who were on Zoom, all doing their classes, and one of the children decided to go and play Fortnite. That just made the entire internet in the house crash, and everybody was kicked out of their Zoom classroom, including the mom, who was also a teacher herself. So everybody was out of Zoom, and they were very upset, of course. But then she said that there was a point when she needed to turn this into a fun activity. And by no means I am encouraging anybody out there to go and play Fortnite in the hopes that this is going to be a fun activity. It is not. We're talking about it after the fact, but please don't do that. But what we want to do is that we want to embrace flexibility. And I think that we also want to implement a sense of gentleness, as well as the ability to use humor in the process. And these would be some of the things that can help us overcome, the difficulty that what's happening here. Because, like you said earlier about the amount of interaction that is taking place at this point in this close proximity for the prolonged time that we are in, many times, inevitably, it will result in friction. So what do you do about that friction? We're not going to say eliminate, the possibility of that friction. That is just humanly not possible. But I think that if we implement a sense of gentleness, flexibility, as well as using humor, I think that would just make the learning experience more attainable. It will be more fun, and it would literally just bring the level of tension at home down. So please, flexibility. So you as an administrator, Dr. Malley, when you hear the word flexibility, what comes to mind? What would you be willing to be flexible with?
I think it's important for schools and for teachers to always be flexible with the students. And one of the things that we always talk among ourselves, the teachers, that when grading, for example, it's not our objective to give a test where we catch the student for not knowing something. It's our objective to ensure the students learn what they're supposed to be learning. So what we try to encourage all of our teachers to implement is, if we give a test and a student doesn't do well, or if you give a homework assignment, the student doesn't get it in on time, but if at a later point they can prove they understood what they were supposed to understand, if they can prove they've mastered or proficient in the skill that we want them to be proficient in, that's what's important. The important thing is not that, I caught you on a test you weren't prepared for, you got a 70. The important thing is that if you got a 70, that 30% that you didn't get, the next week, 2 weeks later, you can prove that you actually mastered it. So in being flexible, and I think that, again, this is something that the pandemic has taught us more than before, that teachers are becoming more flexible. The school itself is becoming more flexible, that we're working to ensure that our students are gaining what they're supposed to be gaining. We're looking at what's important. The important thing is not, again, whether we caught you with something right or wrong. And that's something else that, with the remote learning, it's difficult to assess students in the same way that we did before. It's difficult to give a test where you will show what you know and what you don't know in a written format, like in a 1-hour time test. But what it's forcing us to do is base our assessments on competencies, which is, again, it's a reform movement that's been going on for more than a decade, but it's hard to embrace. It's hard to change, grading students for content and move toward grading toward competencies, which is the important thing. The important thing is not whether a child can regurgitate something on a test, but it's whether they have mastered or become proficient in a skill. And whether they became proficient in that skill on Wednesday or on Friday, it doesn't really matter. So flexibility means that we don't lower the standard, we don't lower the expectation, but we work with students to make sure they gain that skill that we want them to gain.
Dr. Malley, why were you not the principal of my school when I was going to school? I really like what I'm hearing. And yes, we do have some questions coming in. By the way, if you just heard noise in the background, that was one of my kids. He just blew me a kiss, hoping that I would crack up laughing as I am doing this. Words of appreciation to you and previous Dr. Malley. A question here says that we are worrying about kids' eyesight due to long hours in front of the screen.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And that's something that, honestly, we had an orientation session last week and a lot of parents brought it up. We've looked into it more in depth since then. In the past, when we talk about screen time, we generally are talking about two things that we want to avoid. The first one is that, traditionally when we say there's too much screen time for children, the problem is that it's a very passive screen time. That a child's there watching TV or watching a movie or something when there's no engagement from the child. And that has very negative impacts on the children. Actually, they showed, there's research that showed this from old research from the 80s and 90s, before the internet even, that, children who watched a lot of TV, their attention span was much shorter because, the TV used to always come in, 6.5 or 7 minute bursts. You have a 7 minutes and you have commercial, then 7 minutes and commercial. And they were finding that students who watched a lot of TV is very passive. Your brain's not really engaged. Everything's being told to you, you're not being engaged, so that those students had a much lesser attention span than those who were doing things that were more engaging. And the second major problem with screen time was the fact that it was often an alternative to something that was better. So kids play video games all day instead of playing outside, instead of interacting with other children their age. So it had a negative impact in terms of their social skills, in terms of their physical health, in many, many ways. There's a lot of research that shows that. So the third thing, which is something that we're now discussing, is what impact does it have on the eyesight? That usually wasn't a major problem in the past decade. The computers used to give off, much, worse kinds of light than now. So the screens now are better. So is there really an impact on the eyes from watching or from being on a screen for long periods of time? And I think that, I've talked to a lot of doctors this past week after the parents brought it up, and we're trying to find ways to lessen it because it might be a problem that we're not aware of. I think the research is not, is not 100% known whether looking at a screen for a long period of time can have a negative impact on the eyesight, but it's certainly possible. One tip that we found in doing the research is that we should encourage, the children to, if they're watching a Zoom meeting or whatever they're on, every 20 minutes to look away for 20 seconds, just to give the eyes, a small break. We adopted mostly online textbooks because of the facilitation that could be done through remote learning. But now inshallah, we're going to go ahead and buy some that we hadn't bought before, based on the parents' requests that they want to have, some, especially in the math classes, they want to have some textbook they can look at instead of staring at a screen with numbers, especially, and trying to solve problems on the screen. So inshallah, we're doing things to meet those concerns of the parents. But I think the main point is that screen time, the negativity of screen time, wasn't usually meant because of the eyesight. It was usually meant for other reasons. From the doctors I've talked to, it's not really conclusive. But certainly we're aware that it might be a problem, and we'll do whatever we can to avoid that problem, inshallah.
And Dr. Malley, I think I think the concern is, in addition to not so conclusive, like you said, potential eyesight problem, but the prolonged sitting is a problem. So we want to make sure that the kids, the placement of their notebooks, the placement of their laptops is actually good for their posture, that they have a good chair where they are able to sit, straight on, that, the position of the computer itself is okay. However, as far as screen time, I can tell you that this has been really, really bad because of people just prolonged doing this. There's actually now a new diagnosis. It's called the texting neck. And that is people have been going to the chiropractor saying, like, my shoulders and my neck, they really hurt. And what they find out as the prolonged doing of this is really having an impact on people's necks, that you can actually be diagnosed as having a texting neck. And I think that would be an issue to be looking into. But what you said is the breaks, the importance of people getting up, using the breaks not to visit a different website, but rather to actually get up and move around and what have you, I think is really, really crucial. Absolutely. Last question to you, Dr. Malley. How are you doing?
Alhamdulillah. Again, I think that like you said earlier, we don't embrace the negative aspects. When we look at the pandemic in general, I think that one of the things that's important to do is to reflect, as human beings, as Muslims, what is our place, and we should see that this is something that it's a challenge for the whole world. We shouldn't downplay that. We should get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We should ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us, keep us healthy and to end this pandemic. And we should realize how small, insignificant we are as humans in the face of something like this pandemic. So I don't want to downplay that aspect. But again, like I said earlier, the things like this, they give me enthusiasm, because I feel it's a challenge that we have students who we want to ensure they continue getting the best education. We want to ensure that they maintain that strong connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we want to ensure that as a school, we're doing what we can to make those objectives become reality. And it's a lot more work than it was before. But I think that the teachers here, and myself included, have really embraced this challenge. And that challenge gives us, enthusiasm. It gives us energy. And alhamdulillah, I'm doing very well.
That is really, really good to hear. And Dr. Malley, I'm so grateful, and I'm really, really happy that you were our first guest in doing this program. And I think that as a community, and I tell you this in all sincerity, we are blessed to have you as the principal of our school. We are blessed to have the teachers that you spoke so highly of, embracing the change and accepting the challenge and looking into the positivity and the camaraderie that is taking place amongst them. I think that's just an absolutely great blessing, and we absolutely appreciate this. And to all the parents and to the children and to the teachers and the administrators, we really want to say, like, you guys are really, mashallah, doing very well. So please make sure that you take it easy on yourself. Don't be too critical because your kid came to class at 8:01 instead of 7:59. Yes, it would have been better for them to be there at 7:59, but we really want you not to sweat the small stuff. We want you to embrace flexibility. We want you to stay away from rigidity. We want you to embrace a positive and a gentle atmosphere at home. And to the parents, may Allah bless you all for all the work that you have been doing. May Allah bless our children who are really putting up with this, because this is really not normal for them. And may Allah bless our school and our principal, Ya Rabbil Alameen. And for all the people who have joined us today, we want to say thank you very much for joining us, in the hopes that inshallah we will see you next Thursday with another episode of Let's Talk About on Thursdays. Dr. Malley, Jazakallah khair. May Allah bless you. May Allah keep this smile on your face all the time. And this
community also is very blessed to have you here. And we're very, very blessed to have you coming to Memphis. And you've had a very positive impact on the school in the time that you've been here. So Jazakallah khair for your impact, for your input, for your feedback. It's part of what's helping us succeed during this time.
Alhamdulillah, which reminds me that part of what the services that we offer here in the community is being able to consult with a licensed clinician. That would be myself. We offer consultation. So please, if you or a loved one needs a consultation, please do reach out to us either through Masjid al-Salam, through PVS, or through MIC. And inshallah, we would love to be of help. Dr. Malley, I think it's time for you to go home, man. It is 10 o'clock, and I know that you will be back at 7. So again, may Allah bless you, and you have a very blessed good night, inshallah. Jazakallah khair. And to all of our viewers, Jazakumullah khair once again. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Take care.